All right, well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome, I can't believe it, to our final session of our Jewish Music Heritage Learning Series for this year. Each session, we've been taking a look and listen back at the history of Chicagoland Jewish music. In the fall, we began with Dr. Judah Cohen from Indiana University, leading us through a two-session overview of Jewish music in the Chicagoland area. Then we went a bit deeper into a few of the prominent figures who have made their mark in our area. We learned about the life and legacy of Max Janowski with Cantor David Berger, the generations of the Lind family cantors with Cantor Joanna Lind, Hans Verman and his imprint on Reformed Jewish choral tradition with Cantor Richard Cohn, and finally with Cantor Jeff Klepper and his impact in cultivating the congregational voice in the 80s and 90s. The learning series culminates tonight with a presentation on the very brief, there's only so much you can fit in an hour to an hour 15 minutes, of the 5 decades of music at Am Shalom. Cantor Markowicz and Ken Smith have been working tirelessly for months to put this presentation together. They've been conducting interviews, collecting and compiling various archived materials, making recordings featuring some of you on the screen, and so much more. This has truly been a labor of love, and we are blessed to learn from the two of them tonight. So without further ado, I turn it over to you, Cantor Markowicz and Ken.
Well, I'll begin. I'm going to give a sort of an overview, and then we'll have a more detailed view of things that went on for the last 50 years. In thinking of that now almost 50-year-long story of the music at Am Shalom, the first thing that comes to my mind is the people that were involved in it. Everyone knows who I mean. They're those who were either professional or volunteer, and they sang, they played, they advised, they donated, and they helped in their own way for various periods along the timeline that represents the history of the temple's music program. I certainly also think of the leaders, our cantors and our cantorial soloists alike, who have determined the direction of the temple's music, and the various choir directors who have shepherded us through the high holiday music and music for other occasions as well. Then there are the rabbis and associate rabbis who have been perhaps involved to different degrees in what happened in the music program, but who have all supported it, influenced it, and helped write its story. A mountain of gratitude goes to all these people, those who are still with us and those who are not, for doing the work that they did and do to build the program of music at Am Shalom. It's a story which is still unfolding and in which each phase owes a debt to what came before. Looking back over my time as organist and pianist at the temple, I also think of the changes that have occurred in the music itself. The 19th century German organ tradition of having music for organ in the temple services was established very early on in the congregation and was continued when Am Shalom moved to 840 Vernon Avenue. As is typical in many synagogue buildings, the organ was hidden from view, and I spent my earliest days at the console of the invisible Cassavant. Hand in hand with that old German organ tradition went the practice of temple music directors composing music for their own congregations, some of which has been handed down to us and is in use even today. A number of our liturgical pieces in the 1970s and 80s were written especially for use at Am Shalom, a fact that lent a certain amount of musical autonomy to the congregation in the early years. In character, that music built a bridge for the early congregants across the divide between music in a 19th century classical tradition and the inevitable shift to music that reflected the tastes of more modern days. At around the same time, Jewish composers in the wider Reform movement were writing music that was reflective of the sounds which were moving people in the secular world, but also which served as a shared sound for people from different congregations from across the country. In the second half of the 1980s, this music too became part of the services at Am Shalom. A noticeable change brought about by that shift was the diminishing use of the organ, which was not as suitable as piano for the newer style. As the sounds in the American music scene have changed since those days, so has the music that is heard at Am Shalom. In the 1990s, music from the American Music Theater took on an importance at Am Shalom. Ambitiously, there were in-house productions of musicals dealing with Jewish subjects. And I would even say that that truly American sound crept into some of the service music. The new century brought further changes. The overwhelming popularity of guitar and percussion in rock music and pop music in the broader culture made the introduction of those instruments into the services a natural decision. The Friday Night Live tradition started by Craig Taubman in California had its answer in Am Shalom's own version of that, which proved to be very popular. Now, in these most recent years, we have witnessed a flood of creativity from composers who are writing music for the synagogue. Guest artists regularly visit us and bring their music, the variety and effectiveness of which is astounding and seemingly endless. Am Shalom has embraced this, and we've all been enriched by it. A special relationship with the Soul Children of Chicago, which had its roots in the choral festivals of the early 2000s, has brought a music to Am Shalom which springs from a totally different tradition, but which expresses ideals which are central to the aims of the congregation. Their love of our music and our love of their music regularly electrifies everyone who participates. So, with all those changes enumerated, what has remained the same? Well, for one thing, some people. You know those familiar faces in the choir. They've just kept on participating. Their love of being involved in music has made them a core part of this whole story. Another thing is that no matter the changes in the style of composition, the music has always supported well-known and treasured texts. As an example, the Vishamru setting of Louis Lewandowski, or of Joel Shapiro, or Ben Steinberg, or Debbie Friedman, or Moshe Rothblum, or Craig Talman, all illuminate the same beautiful text. Through the years, you've heard them all, as they provide their take on different facets of the Shabbat experience. A third thing is that a Jewish flavor has always been present in the music. What does that mean? Well, apart from the presence of some particular Orientally derived melodic figures, I don't really know, but you do know it if you hear it. Finally, something that has not changed, at least in my time at the temple, is that music has occupied a very important place in the life of the congregation. So you can still find in it a constancy and familiarity on Friday evenings, though when we introduce a new tune, it's okay. It can still help to celebrate the joyful passages of children into adulthood on Saturdays. It can still make certain life events festive and give comfort at others. It still tries to speak to you and ennoble your experience of the high holiday services. And it still draws together people who love music and who love being involved in making it. So who knows who might write the next Vishamru and what it might sound like. We just want to stick around and find out now what has happened for those 50 years, and also get ready to listen to all the things that are yet to come. So I'll turn it over to Cantor Markowicz, who has done an incredible job in compiling all the data that we've come up with. And I hope that you'll be stirred by memories of people and events as we go through this listing of things that we've prepared. Cantor Markowicz.
Thank you so much, Ken. That was one of the most beautiful and eloquent introductions to provide us a groundwork and a framework for the music that has gone on at Am Shalom for these last 50 years. I will say that this was a pretty daunting task, and almost I feel like I want to almost apologize right up front, because I mean, it's been 50 years. How we put that into 50 minutes, I'm not quite sure, but we're going to do our best to travel the lifespan. So without further ado, here we go. So Breshit, in the beginning, 1972 to 1982, there's a real emphasis on classical Jewish music and classical music made Jewish through a Jewish lens. 82 through 92, we're finally home in our building at Am Shalom at 840 Vernon. And we really find a creativity in music with new melodies and liturgical compositions. 1992 to 2002, a chorus of joyful voices, joyful Jewish voices, with choirs aplenty, the Amis a la the Emmys, musicals, and more, bringing one congregation together in harmony. 2002 to 2012, Jewish music for the 21st century, an evolution of sound and style continues. And finally, this last decade, 2012 to 2022 to today, hallelujah, we praise as we take stock and say from those 30 families way back, grew many. We honor our past, and we look toward the future through this music that we hope to enhance and inspire and will create Jewish community. Decade number 1. So in decade number 1, actually, hold on, gotta go back. There we go. Back here. Okay. Decade number 1, we begin in June 18th in 1972 with Rabbi Harold Kudan and our founding families, with the first formal service happening just a couple months later, not quite 2 months, in August 4th, 1972. And Rabbi Kudan, I believe, shared with us that that it took place in Stan Schumann's home, which under a tent, which they had because his daughter was getting married the next day. At this service, there was a baby naming, the child of Norma and Bob Glass, and it happened to be a little buggy that day. So I believe, Rabbi Kudan, you shared that you said, "Let us pray and let us spray," and the service continued. In September of that year, the 8th to be exact, the first High Holy Days of Am Shalom was held at the Winnetka Congregational Church. The organist and choir director was Helmut Spitzer. With a full professional choir, cantorial soloist was Joe Goldberg, and the Kol Nidre soloist was CSO first violist Milton Preeves. One fun little caveat, which thankfully did not happen, was that the Congregational Church said that if there was a funeral, that we would have to vacate, Thank God we did not. There was a memory of a particular Eitz Chaim that that Helmut Spitzer wrote, and we believe that it was maybe heard on those high holy days. So here's a listen. Also, there was a memory too that the soloist was often for this particular piece was Lynn Hennigan. Play more. We just need to move on. Our next, I want to talk about the one person that was really important at the beginning and throughout for many years, who was Mort Barnard. Mort Barnard began at the very beginning as a founding member as music chair, and he was instrumental, pun intended, in helping the music program to flourish and continue at a very high level. He not only donated for the cause, but he also volunteered a great deal of his time and energy throughout his years as chair. Aside from his leadership, he was known for his love of G&S, of Gilbert and Sullivan. He was a lawyer and starred in the Chicago Bar Association shows. And at Am Shalom, his rendition of the Avot prayer on High Holy Days, among others, was incredibly special and very memorable. When he stepped down as chair in the late 1990s, he passed the torch, Lador Vador, to the person who sat next to him for so many years, who is here today, Jeff Arnold. And one of the pieces that he was instrumental in ushering into the High Holy Days is this next piece. This is... So what's found really interesting about that piece is that, as you see, the music is by Sibelius, and the words are attributed, as far as we know, to Mort Barnard. And when we look at the words, you can sort of see where he pulled from different places in the High Holy Days liturgy and wrote something that was appropriate for the beginning of the Yom Kippur afternoon service. In 1973, High Holy Days were held at Central School in Glencoe, and the music personnel shifted a bit. Maggie Kemper, who we think was the organist, Ann Alderson was likely the High Holy Days choir conductor, and the cantorial soloist was baritone Ian Geller, who also, I believe, went on to be the soloist at Temple Shalom in the city. The Kol Nidre soloist was Frank Miller, the cellist from the CSO, and he was recommended by Milton Preeves, who happened to not be available that year. Frank played for a few years and once told Rabbi Kudan that this was one of the highlights of his life, to play Kol Nidre every year. He died in 1986 and was truly beloved by all who knew him. We move on. 1974 to 1978, we believe Dorothy Lyle was the organist and would have stayed longer, but her husband, who was an Episcopal priest at St. David's in Glencoe, was transferred. Also in 1974, this young woman begins as cantorial soloist. And Rabbi Kudan recalls her stunning voice that truly lifted the prayers. Let's hear a little of Jean.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Kotanu lefonecha, Avinu Malkeinu,
Just a little bit about Jean. In 1977, Joel Shapiro is hired as the director of music and cantorial soloist. And in 1978, we're fairly certain Marilyn Schoenfeld begins playing as the featured Kol Nidre soloist. 1978 also begins Vicki Graf's tenure as organist. And it was said that we used to go to her home located behind the courtyard for rehearsal. And also to note, for those who maybe know Vicki, also her husband was the CSO first flutist. 1980, we believe, the adult volunteer choir officially begins. And it was said that the adult choir sang monthly. There were about 10 regulars. And Jeff Arnold started singing that year. And the next year, in 1981, Nancy Berg starts singing in the choir, among many others. Nancy recalled a really fun exchange with Mort Barnard, her audition, so to speak. And he didn't know her, really, so he was asking about her musical ability. And of course, she said, well, I am a music teacher. And, he said, okay, you're in. Let's go. In 1981, there was a joint Shabbat service held with Temple Jeremiah. And following that service was a very memorable concert of Handel's Judas Maccabeus. This is the program, the Shabbat Shalom, that was from that evening. You can see how it was typed out in a typewriter, a real live one. And you can see that in the bottom it says, this production of Judas Maccabeus is a gift of the Molnar Foundation through the courtesy of Eleanor and Morton Barnard of Am Shalom. And the cast, the beautiful cast, some very familiar names there. Richard and Ann Alderson, Cynthia Hayman, who's the Grammy-nominated operatic soprano, who actually was known at that time, while she was in the choir. One of her famed solos was the Avinu Malkeinu by Janowski, and then, of course, Dorothy Lyle was the accompanist for this production. I want to mention, before we continue on, just one additional person that was important to music and its founding, and that's Bert Rose, who is Nancy Burke's father and an incredible band leader in the Chicago area. And while he didn't officially have a position at Am Shalom, he always jumped in to help with music at a moment's notice when needed. And later on in our history, he was, for about 10 years, the pianist for the Erev services of High Holy Days for the family. So I see Rabbi Landsman nodding her head. Yes, exactly. So we continue on. The next decade, home at Am Shalom. Creativity in music with new melodies and liturgical compositions. 1982, it was July. And Glencoe's Am Shalom moves to a new home. That new home is at 840 Vernon. Just about a month later, Ken Smith is brought onto the team, and it is his first service on August 18th. It's the first service actually in the building that was formerly or originally North Shore Congregation Israel, and then the Willow School, and now reestablished Am Shalom. Rabbi Kudan recollected that it rained that evening as well. Let's see, Ken was primarily hired as the organist, which was the primary instrument used for all services, though occasionally piano was used for rehearsal. A funny little thing that Ken mentioned to me as we were talking about this was that the organ was located behind the bima. And so he actually, while he played the organ, he never actually heard what it sounded like in the sanctuary space because he was always playing the organ from the back. Actually, there's one additional story that I want to ask Ken if he'd like to tell. I can only imagine that High Holy Days were super fun just 1 month after never having played High Holy Days ever before. It's certainly a lot to take on, and literally it was 1 month. So on September 17th was Rosh Hashanah, a bit of a trial by fire, but Ken tells that Marilyn Schoenfeld was incredibly helpful, particularly in that first year, and getting him through. Ken, is there anything that you'd like to share about that?
Sure. I distinctly remember that it was an overwhelming amount of music, a lot of which did not have a piano part and had to be sort of devised from reading the score. And then it was getting very close to the time for the holidays to occur. And then someone said, "Oh, the violinist is going to come to rehearse Kol Nidre tonight." I had never heard Kol Nidre in my life at the time, nor any of the other music had I heard it at that time. And it was Marilyn Schoenfeld. And she came, and she was the kind of person who put me totally at ease. And we got through it, and we got through it a lot more times after that. And it was the beginning of a great friendship. My first meeting of her there. So one that I treasured for many years.
Thank you so much. Let's hear just a little bit of Kol Nidre from Marilyn. We don't have a clip from 1982, but we do have a video from 1996. I'd love to hear more of that. Let's continue on. In 1983 or 84, the Lawson Concert Series was established and ran for about 10 years. Fred Lawson endowed this series in memory of his beloved wife, Doris, who also happened to be a singer. There were about 3 concerts per year, often with music that highlighted Jewish identity inspired through classical music, along with many other wonderful musicians, some of whom we have already mentioned above. Marilyn Schoenfeld played in at least 1 per year, and sometimes with Ken Smith. Not sure of the year, but here is a fun photo from back in the day, which we believe was probably from a Lawson concert. There was a Doris Lawson music room that was also dedicated around this time, just off the stage of the old auditorium. And inside that room, there was an upright piano and a place to keep sheet music. And that's and that's that. I want to circle back. I mentioned just a few moments ago Joel Shapiro, who began as a music director in 1977 and continuing through to 1989, and a long tenure. I want to note that it's a pretty amazing thing. Joel wrote a lot of new original music to the liturgy, as well as music inspired from the classical repertoire and adapted it to the liturgy. A giant and important project he spearheaded and clearly poured his heart and soul into was the preparation of a sort of hymnal. The book was called Hallel V'Zimra, Songs for the Home and Synagogue. And this is what it looked like. It was also dedicated to the memory of Doris Lawson with the inscription that music brings joy to one's life. That was June 20th, 1985. I love what Joel wrote here. It's so beautiful. This collection, entitled Hallel V'Zimra, Praise and Song, brings together just a small portion of the treasury that is Jewish music. We are grateful to the composers, known and unknown, who enriched our services and our family observances with wonderful melodies. Many of these songs, liturgical and non-liturgical, already have great meaning for our congregation. Others will no doubt become favorites as time goes on. May this volume bring joy to the ears, the eyes, and the hearts of Am Shalom. Deep thanks to Mary Davis, who laid out the pages of this book and adorned them with illustrations. Thanks to Ruth Barnard for her patient encouragement and her way with words. And thanks to Rebecca Myers, under whose eye and hand this book began to take shape. And I wanted to show you a little bit of what was inside this book. This was the table of contents. You can see there's quite a lot of music included. This is some of the artwork that was mentioned before that separated the different sections of the book. Really beautiful. And the following is a piece that you might recognize if you were around Am Shalom at that time and also beyond.
ושמרו, ושמרו, בני ישראל, את השבת, את השבת, לדורותם בריתולם. והביאו בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, את השמיים והארץ, וביום השביעי שבת, שבת, שבת ויהי נפש.
Thank you so much to Joel Shapiro for that beautiful piece of music. And perhaps, Joel, you may be available. I see that we see that you're here, and we're so glad that you are, and wanted to invite you to say a few words if you'd like.
Thank you. I would love to. And hello to all my friends and all the people who I wish were my friends because I don't yet know you. And congratulations to everybody who's carried on the musical traditions of Am Shalom. I apologize to you. I don't know what happened to my image. Maybe it's just as well. But if you can hear me, what I want to tell you is how much I cherish the memories that I have of my time as Cantor at Am Shalom, and how important it was to me to be a voice of the congregation, not only physically, but also creating music that I thought would reflect the ethos of the congregation and maybe in a way even help to shape it. I think all of us who have participated in Am Shalom from the beginning know that everyone really mattered. Everyone really counted musically and in other ways. My memories of the choir are particularly vivid, and Nancy and Jeff and Diane and Steve are all here tonight, and it's wonderful to have that continuity. When I thought back about the music that we did, both my music and other music, and the music we did with the choir, I was really kind of amazed at the variety and the freshness of all of that. And in no small part, it was because of the tremendous enthusiasm and the innate musicality of the folks in the choir who really always stepped up from month to month and didn't simply perform, but really pronounced in every way who we were as Am Shalom. So all of those are wonderful memories, and I know that I share them with countless other people.
Thank you so much, Joel. Thank you so much for sharing those words and those memories and feelings. And thank you for being here today. We so appreciate your music and your leadership as music director and Cantor in the early years. And I can honestly say we would not be who we are without you. One more, as we continue on, one more illustration of the phenomenal music that was intrinsic to the culture of Am Shalom. I will put up on the screen here one more time a Shabbat Shalom program from July 1st, 1988, saved, thank goodness, by Marilyn Schoenfeld and then found and shared by her daughter, Fran. I think it's super fun to sort of see what's happening here and the richness of what is going on musically. As you can see, the regular music team will be at Shabbat services, Ken Smith and Cantor Joel Shapiro. But also that evening, they'll be joined by Evan Vogel, cellist, and Franz Schoenfeld Sherman, violinist, and sharing 3 duets for violin and cello. Not to worry if you missed that week. There's something, another special thing happening the very next Friday night with regular Shabbat services and Susan Lundholm and Mark Lundholm and a recital of Viennese waltzes adapted for soprano and tenor with Ken Smith, of course, at the piano. And of course, it's the summer, so Ravinia is happening. And there will be an Am Shalom Ravinia night on August 7th. So everyone should mark their calendars. It was, as Cantor Staple and I were speaking a little bit earlier today, we noted that, well, that has not changed one iota. There will be an Am Shalom Ravinia night this summer too, in July.
You just took one of my announcements.
Ah!
Mark your calendars.
What's the date? What's the date?
July
Cantor
30th.
Staple?
July 30th.
Okay. Join us July 30th for music at Am Shalom's Ravinia night. And we continue. So this decade also ushered in a full-time cantorial soloist in 1989, July 1st, in Cantor Nancy Landsman. I want to say that we have Ken to thank for encouraging Nancy to apply for the position after having met her while subbing at BJBE, where Nancy sang part-time. Nancy was a huge force, and among the many responsibilities of directing the adult and junior choirs, the junior choir officially being established in 1989, and tutoring B'nai Mitzvah, teaching music in the religious school, taking over actually from Nancy Berg, the daughter of founding members Marcia and Bert Rose, who had taught for the last 5 years, beginning in 1984. Nancy Landsman directed congregational plays and talent shows, many, and founded the North Shore Choral Festival. An additional request at that time from Rabbi Kudan and Am Shalom leadership, as Nancy was beginning her tenure, was to infuse music being sung in Reform congregations across the country into our community. Nancy loved being a part of life cycle events and being with people for both the oys and the joys and everything in between. She particularly loved mentoring young people over the years, some of whom ultimately became cantors, like, for example, Leah Holland Ingerham, Zichrona Livracha, and Adam Kahand. I mentioned new music. Nancy was charged with bringing some new music into the congregation. I'll cite an event which aided in this endeavor. In the early 1990s, there was a very heavy rainfall and a flood in Glencoe that destroyed the roof and caused the retiring of the Casavat pipe organ in the sanctuary. As an aside, the organ had been installed in the sanctuary in 1928 as the building opened and when the building was built. That precipitated, the retiring of that organ precipitated a shift in musical style to using piano in the sanctuary exclusively for Shabbatot and holidays and other ceremonies. The current president was Danny Lee, and he organized the donation of 2 Sojin pianos. Unfortunately, these pianos had a short lifetime and were soon replaced with a Steinway Grand, which was bought with contributions to the Friends of Am Shalom Fund, circa 1992-93. Music with organ did continue, but exclusively for the High Holy Days, with an instrument donated by another founding family, Claire Kenningsberg. That's Maxine Greenberg's mom. This organ is still used today. Another important music project to mention was the creation of the Am Shalom Shiron. I'll show you what that looks like. Here we go. This is the Am Shalom Shiron, as you can see, compiled and designed by Edith Sherman, illustrations of section covers and English songs by Gilly Sherman, and special thanks due to Dorothy Yeager. This was the index for the English songs and the Hebrew songs. Something really fun about this Shiron was that if you opened it from the Hebrew side, then you would find only the Hebrew titles, and Hebrew music. And then if you opened from the English side, then only the English songs were listed. I thought that was fun. This was some of the artwork that adorned the pages of this Shiron and separated the different sections. Clearly hand-drawn, really beautiful. And these were some of the pages. So on at least my right, on the Hebrew side, you find what a Hebrew page might look like. And on the left, you find what an English page might look like in this Shiron. We see that this compendium, like the earlier Hallel V'Zimra, was also dedicated to the memory of Doris Lelson. I'm not totally sure, but this book may have been available to use as people gathered for services and ceremonies and holidays. The 1990s also brought the beginning of additional holiday services. Morning festival services were held jointly with Temple Jeremiah. At the time, Amy Sussman was cantorial soloist and later cantor. Slichot was added at 10 p.m. on the Saturday night before Rosh Hashanah. And we should also note that the adult choir was singing monthly at Shabbat services. 1992 in February, the very first congregational musical production occurred, which was Fiddler on the Roof. To note, there was a second production probably about 15 years later. Two more things to mention as we approach the end of decade number 2 of the musical life at Am Shalom. Number 1, a recollection from Rabbi Kudan surrounding a fundraiser featuring famed violinist and CSO concertmaster of 50 years, Victor Ete, among other players. So the committee wanted to host the event in our beautiful and historic sanctuary, but until then, the sanctuary had only been utilized for Jewish services and ceremonies. Rabbi Kudan recalls checking rabbinic responsa on whether it was proper to use the sanctuary for this purpose versus a service or ceremony. And according to the rabbi's findings, it was, and the fundraiser proceeded in the sanctuary. Finally, on May 31st, 1992, our congregation celebrates its 20th anniversary with a gala concert of Mendelssohn's oratorio, Elijah. This was the program and those who participated in it. It was directed by Randall Manges, assisted by Daniel Wallenberg, with soloists Richard Alderson, Nancy Diamond-Landsman, Ann Alderson, John Paulson, and of course Kenneth Smith, accompanist, and a chorus of 3 different choirs: the Am Shalom Congregational Choir, Winnetka Congregational Church, and Diller Street Chorale. And with that, we close out the decade as we celebrate 20 years. Decade number 3, 1992 to 2002, a chorus of joyful Jewish voices. Many choirs. The Amis, for those who may not know, although looking at the screen, I think most will, that the Amis were sort of a la the Emmy Awards, but for Am Shalom. I mentioned musicals began, and there were many more. And all of this was sort of bringing our congregation into one congregation in harmony. There were additions to the repertoire, lending to a nice mix of old favorites and new settings in sync with the wider reform movement. And the new sound with piano as the main accompaniment during the year, with organ just reserved, as I mentioned before, to the High Holy Days. Over this decade, you may have encountered settings by composers Bonya Shore, Michael Isaacson, Jeff Klepper, and Danny Freelander, Max Janowski, Naomi Shemer, Jacob Rappaport, and Debbie Friedman, to name just a few. If you were around during that time, these were some of the melodies. Jacob Rappaport's Elu Devarim, a favorite of Cantor Landsman. Elu Devarim she'en lahem shiur. Or Michael Isaacson's V'ne'emar, a favorite of Rabbi Pam's. V'ne'emar v'haya. Or Bonya Shore's Kedusha, the setting sung most weeks at Torah Study Minyan. Torah Study Minyan, you can hear it again this week, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Jeff Klepper and Danny Freelander's Shalom Rav, heard most Friday nights, now also known as Max's favorite. Debbie Friedman's Misha Berach, Osa Shalom, and many more. Naomi Shemer's Yerushalayim Shel Zahav in multiple arrangements for solo, for choirs, for youth, for adults. And settings of Max Janowski, like Tov LeHaodot, and this gem, with a text by Chaim Nachman Bialik. According to Ken Smith, this setting was often utilized in the earlier part of this decade as an anthem. I'll continue on. 1994 brought the first Amis, and talent shows occurred every few years. They were often accompanied by Bert Rose, and at least one of them was emceed by Dr. Barry Kaufman. 1996, we have the next musical production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Note that this musical, too, played once again, I believe in 2010, later on in our journey. About 1997, somewhere 1997, 98, 99, a huge project was started and completed. It was called, let's see if I can turn the page here, One Congregation, Passageway to Prayer at Am Shalom. It was a fantastic resource and education tool of a binder and a cassette tape, introducing young families in particular through the various prayers and blessings in the Am Shalom minhag, or tradition. As you can see, it was graciously funded in loving memory of Lillian Bramson, Joseph Krasner, Lawrence Bramson, and Polly Last by their families, the Sankin family and Last families. Many people had their hands in the development of this project. As you can see, Rabbi Kudan, Sharon Morton, Cantor Landsman, Nancy Berg, Ken Smith, Sheila Newman, Daniel Lee, WSBC, Kathy and Jeremy Kudan, Judy Berliner, Faith Avner, Tamar Gans, Diane and Jeff Arnold, the Am Shalom Adult Choir, Am Shalom Administrative Staff, Jacob and Levi Nitzberg, Daniel and Jessica Seidman, Vivian Nitzberg, and Gail Seidman. And you'll see as we turn the page what this looked like. Here were what the table of contents looked like. And I thought it might be fun to hear a little bit of what you might find in that lovely cassette tape that you would pop into your car's deck.
Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Hey hey. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la.
So that was the just half of the very first selection on that tape. And I know it says number 2, Mrs. Morton's Holiday Song, but this was actually number 34 in the list of the Am Shalom sing-along. Let's hear a little bit of this special Mrs. Morton's Holidays song. And I gather that this gem was created and taught at Am Shalom by our education director emerita, Sharon Morton.
Page 34,
That's
Mrs.
Jeff
Morton's
Arnold's voice.
Holiday Song.
Do you know the holidays as each one comes near? Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur start out the year. On Sukkot, remember the harvest day. On Simchat Torah, flags lead the way. On Chanukah, we light 8 candles bright. On Tu B'Shvat, we plant trees just right. Purim reminds us of Esther the Queen. On Pesach, we read the Haggadah and lean Israel's independence.
Just a little clip of that. Finally, note that the opening of this compendium features a piece by Joel Shapiro, an original composition dedicated to Am Shalom entitled One Congregation.
Page 30.
Here's a clip of this setting. One congregation, we are a people of peace, one inspiration, tikkun olam. Our obligation that war and hunger shall cease for generations yet to come. One Torah, our delight. One tikva, one eternal light, one congregation. We are a people of peace, one inspiration, tikkun olam. Our obligation that war and hunger shall cease for generations yet to come. I love seeing everyone sort of singing along to this one. You'll have another opportunity at our annual meeting on June 17th. We continue on. The next year, in 1998, the North Chorus Festival was founded by Cantor Landsmen and other area colleagues and featured various synagogue choirs and their cantors and soloists, as well as special guest artists, composers, and conductors like Eleanor Epstein, who's a composer, arranger, and conductor, and she was the first to come as the special guest for North Shore Choral Festival. All others that came were Craig Taubman, Dan Nichols, Julie Silver, and the first appearance, I believe, at Am Shalom of Soul Children of Chicago. While the first and a number of the festivals were held at Am Shalom, it did occasionally rotate to different congregations and was often held, at least the final concert, on Sundays, Sunday evenings. Before we close out this decade, I just want to mention one other instrumentalist that came up in the research, and that is Charles Pickler. He was another instrumentalist from the CSO who joined Am Shalom in 2000 with his family, and was also a featured violist during High Holy Days for a very special Avinu Malkeinu. It's interesting to note that he happened to have been named first chair after Milton Preeves, who was our first Kol Nidre soloist in 1982. Finally, in 2002, Ken Smith celebrates his 20th anniversary with Am Shalom with an April recital. And Rabbi Kudan retires and becomes our founding rabbi, and we usher in a new era and a new century with Rabbi Steve as our new senior rabbi. We continue on. The next decade begins in 2002. Jewish music for the 21st century, the evolution of sound and style continues. Many of the projects Cantor Landsman initiated continue excuse me, and expand, including the North Shore Choral Festival, Adult Choir, and Junior Choir. The Junior Choir also now joining together with other area congregations at Usrui in an annual retreat, culminating with a performance at a congregation and or a senior facility. And of course, continuing the production of musicals and talent shows, bringing kids and adults together in the context of Jewish life through music. Additionally, over the course of the next 10 years, many of the most popular composers and Jewish musical artists around visit Am Shalom for various Shabbatot, like Bon Yeshur, we believe was one of the first of this time period, had a relationship with Rabbi Steve at Cincinnati at HUC there while he was a student. Craig Taubman, who continues to be with us often through today. Rick Recht, Dan Nichols, Julie Silver, and of course, Debbie Friedman. In 2003, begins as Rabbi Phyllis comes onto the scene, the contemporary and the contemplative Erev Rosh Hashanah and Kol Nidre services. This ushers in a meditative and gentle sound for the High Holy Days with story and song. The music team was, for the first year, with Leah Holland, who then went off to cantorial school, and then continued with Cantor Adam Cahan, not a cantor then, but a cantor now, singing and playing guitar with Mark Perlish on the flute. Here's a sample of what you might have heard during that service. I'll also note that around this time there began the evening High Holy Days family service, for which Bert Rose accompanied this 6 p.m. service for many, many years. 2004 ushers in Friday Night Live, Shabbat in Spirit and Song, modeled after Craig Taubman's service at Sinai Temple in LA that was at first a bit controversial in the late 90s, 99 to be exact, but now, 5 years later, was starting to infuse itself in communities across the country. Instead of piano or organ as accompaniment, the service was more of a rock style with amplified instruments like guitar, bass, percussion, and clarinet. And this ran for about 10 years. And Adam and his band, Kavana, were the leaders of this service along with our rabbis. Here's a sample of some of the music you might hear at that service. would love to hear more, but I think we should probably journey on. In 2006, a second day of Rosh Hashanah service was added for the first time at Am Shalom. And in 2008, a new upright Steinway piano was bought for the reopening of the building after the renovation. In 2009, Cantor Landsman celebrated 20 years with Am Shalom in a big musical celebration with the North Shore Choral Festival, for which she founded, with special musical guest being her longtime friend, Debbie Friedman. In 2010, a new annual concert was consecrated in memory of Marilyn Schoenfeld. Endowed by Bill Schoenfeld in loving memory of Marilyn, the concert is under direction of their daughter, violinist Fran Schoenfeld Sherman, and features chamber music. While you mark your calendars for this year's concert, taking place on Sunday, June 12th at 3 p.m. in the Crown Room at Am Shalom, here's a look at the first program, which featured Larry Block, Ken Smith, and Fran, and some photos from over the years. So I'll mention that I mentioned earlier that Cantor Landsman produced a few talent shows over the years. I believe possibly one of the last ones, it was in 2011. And Am Shalom had some very talented young people. Two of whom were the sons of Jay Dembski, and thanks to Ken for acquiring these wonderful videos from Jay and Diane. And let's see, I believe we have some short clips to show here of these talented young people. Younger brother, just 11 at the time, Jordan Dembski. I definitely remember his bar mitzvah just a couple years later. As we move into the next decade of music at Am Shalom, I want to, at this moment, acknowledge Nancy Landsman and all that she did to lift up Jewish music and Jewish life through music over the 22 years that she served at Am Shalom. We weren't sure if she was gonna be able to be here tonight, but I believe that she is, and would love to invite her to say a few words.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, the hour is getting late, so I'll just be really brief and say it was an amazing 23 years to have the honor to work alongside Ken Smith, Rabbi Kudan, Rabbi Steve, and and the amazing choir, many of whom are here this evening and could not have done it with all the support that you all gave. It was truly a wonderful journey and a wonderful spiritual home for me and my children. And thank you so much. This is a wonderful, wonderful presentation. You've worked really hard, all of you, to put this together. Kol hakavod.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you. I can see people waving. Lovely to have you here. Really appreciate it. We continue on to the next decade. All right. The last decade, the fifth decade, hallelujah. We praise from a few, grew many. We honor our past and we look toward the future through music to enhance, inspire, and create Jewish community. 2012 brought an interim ordained cantor, Paul Offenkrantz, into the mix as the congregation searched for their first permanent ordained cantor to join the team. In 2013, the In the Living Room concerts were launched by Rabbi Steve and Craig Taubman, literally in Rabbi Steve's living room. We have had many concerts since then featuring visiting artists in this more intimate and relaxing setting. We'll note that during the pandemic, well, I guess we're still there, but in the first 2 years, we sort of shifted the language. So it was now in your living room that the concert experience would occur. And we hope to actually revive this in the in-person setting as soon as it's possible. Some of the people who performed were Dan Nichols, Josh Nelson, Cantors Ellen Dreskin and Rosalie Well, Rick Racht, Cantor Patty Linsky, Ben Manis and friends, and Joni Leeds and Matt Check. My tenure began at Am Shalom in July of 2013 after my ordination. And we'll move quickly along to a new initiative, the Jewish Music Heritage Series, which launched in November of 2013. Let's see if I can turn the page. The idea of the initiative was to, over the course of the year, expose and explore the ever-evolving modes of worship and musical expressions within the Jewish prayer experience and feature Kolenu, the Am Shalom adult choir. This was built as a quasi-education experience as well as a Shabbat experience. Our first scholar in residence for this project was world-renowned composer, conductor, and professor, Dr. Samuel Adler. And we'll play a little excerpt from that service.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Stop the share for a moment. Since the project's launch, we've experienced 18 different services with various guest artists and composers. Some additional highlights include a spring 2014, still within our first year, focusing on the music of Yehezkel Brown. And once again, we have Ken Smith to thank for connecting us with the wonderful Dr. Orna Arania, our fabulous conductor and occasional cantorial soloist. Orna joined us more regularly in 2015, and we thank Orna for her spirit and musicality and generosity. I think she's here today. I saw her jump in earlier. We could not do what we do without you. In 2015, we had Galit Dardashti and her band Divan in a unique Persian Sephardi experience. Jonathan Commissar, Feliza and Or Zohar from Israel in 2017. In 2018, a jazz Shabbat with flautist Matan Klein, featuring arrangements from local composer and science teacher Bob Applebaum. And our last Shabbat was, our last Jewish Music Heritage Shabbat was with pianist professor and Yiddish music scholar Joyce Rosenzweig in a Yiddish Shabbos. That was, as I said, our last before the pandemic began, but not to worry, we'll be back again. So mark your calendars for August 12th. We will hopefully be in the courtyard for our next Jewish Music Heritage Series Shabbat. Also in 2013 through till today, a number of visiting guest artists are added to the mix yearly, helping to infuse the latest and greatest of what is happening in the Jewish music world across the spectrum, including bringing in groups from liberal and progressive Israeli congregations like Beit Tfilah Israeli in Tel Aviv and Nava Tehillah in Jerusalem. And some of the artists from our area here include Noah Aronson, who's visited us a number of times and been commissioned music for us, and Hadar and Sheldon, Michael Hunter Oaks, Shimon Smith, Rabbi Noam Katz, Joni Leeds, Josh Nelson, Nefesh Mountain, Sababa, Mary and Alana Arian, and many, many more. I want to specifically mention a fund that was created in 2014. We'll move back to here. The Ken Smith Music Fund. This fund was named for Ken for his dedication at that point in time over the last 30 plus years to Am Shalom. Ken, we really could not do what we do without you. And we're so grateful for the 40 years that you have been with Am Shalom. And I'm so grateful to you for helping with this project. There was no way that I could have put this together without working with you every step of the way. So thank you very, very much. Also in 2014, our recording projects launched to share more Jewish music with the congregation, allowing the spiritual uplift not just within the synagogue walls, but wherever you were. And here are just some of what we've put out musically. Our last album was in 2019 with the Soul Children of Chicago and Dr. Walt Whitman, recorded live at Social Justice Shabbat Shira. And we thought we'd hear a little bit of that, because how could we even talk about music without these wonderful last number of years with the Soul Children's visit and that special service. Here we go. Here's a little bit of one of the pieces.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ותגננו ועצה טובה מלפניך. Let us lie down in peace. Help us wake up with life. Shelter us, shelter us, shelter us. Light in the darkness that seems to find us. Fill the hunger in our hearts that bind us.
the hour is growing late. So we'll move forward. Of course, we have to mention the Ruach Children's Choir that was started so many years ago. I believe, I'm not sure exactly when the name became Ruach, but the children's choir started with Cantor Landsman in 1989. These are just some of the photos, at least yearly photos since I've been here. You'll notice the two from 2019 and 2020 at the bottom. One was over Zoom, of course, that very last one, and we're looking forward to returning again in person in the fall for the High Holy Days and for the year. We'll move forward to our Shir Chadash Teen Band, which you'll notice while I started in 2013, the band actually did not start until 2014. Specifically by our mandolin player, Sam Powers, who just graduated from college. It's a fun story of him coming up to me after religious school one Sunday and saying, "Hey, Cantor, I play the mandolin. Can I come and play with you?" And the answer, of course, was, "Yeah, okay." He comes, he plays for a couple weeks. Then at the end of the second week, he says, "Cantor, my brother Zach plays the piano. Can he come and play?" "Sure." Next week, Zach comes. And about a month later, says, "We have this other friend named Will Larrick. Can he come and play?" Now, he plays the piano too. So as this is Zach, he says, "I'll move to something else. I'll figure it out." He tries violin because he also plays a little violin. And he tries a different instrument, and they all work it out. And then, of course, the final member from that year is Meryl Rudy, who comes with her voice and guitar. And now we have a wonderful teen band, which, again, we hope and we're planning to have back into the mix in the fall for the High Holy Days and beyond. The Shir Chadash Teen Band, by 2016, in February, were ready to write their own music, and we gathered for a little jam session. And Zach Powers brought a little ditty that he was playing with. Which turned into this piece of music, Shema You Shall Love. And it happened to catch fire thanks to Dan Nichols sharing it at camps and later that summer. And this was what the first recording sounded like.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
Moving on. The next year, launched the Midsummer Night's Dream concerts in 2015, and we've had one every year since. And actually, in 2020, we actually had a festival over the Zoom platform, and we're looking forward to being back in person again, as we were in the summer last year outside in our courtyard. This year's concert will be on August 4th, and the announcement of who will be joining us and what the program will be forthcoming soon. Other things about music at that time, in 2016, Katie House joins the education and youth team, and because she happens to also have a beautiful voice and play guitar, she begins helping us out at Tots and with other youth music. Also, Cantor Alexandra Fox becomes our cantorial intern, coming in every once in a while to help out with music. And then, of course, the monumental hire of Cantor Julie Staple in 2018 as the second cantor for Am Shalom. I'm so grateful to Cantor Staple, and I just want to acknowledge her here. None of this is possible without the partnership that I have with her, and I'm just very grateful for her. So thank you very much, Cantor Staple. Want to talk at this time too, because oftentimes simchas happen to be joined by wonderful commissions of new music. Over the course of the last 9 years since I've been at Am Shalom, and I would imagine before as well, there have been a number of new commissions. There were 2 that occurred at one at my installation and one at Cantor Staple's installation. And maybe we'll hear just a few moments of Cantor Staple and this beautiful piece, Zot Ot Habrit, commissioned by Cantor Benji Ellen Scheller, from Cantor Benji Ellen Scheller.
Zot Ot Habrit, Zot Ot Habrit, Asher ani noten beini uvenehem, uven kol nefesh chaya, kol nefesh chaya, asher itchem ledorot olam, ledorot olam. This is the sign, this is the sign of the covenant I make between me and you, and every living being with you throughout all time, from generation to generation, yet to be, from generation to generation.
I hate to leave you hanging, but we're going to move on. In 2019, we were able to expand our youth music program, and we ended up breaking out the Ruach Choir and focusing that group on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders, and then creating a new tween band for the 5th and 6th graders who we were finding were just a little bit too cool to hang out with 2nd graders. So we created this new opportunity for them, and I'm happy to report that we already have 2 students signed up for the fall as school registration has opened. And these 2 lovely young first-timers that joined the band having no idea what it was going to be like will now be in Shir Hadash as they have aged out in the last couple years. I will just close, and there's so much more to talk about, but the hour is late, and it's also sort of hard to talk about the things that you worked on over these years. I just want to express my gratitude to all of you, so many who are here today, and so many who made music at Am Shalom what it is. We really could not do what we do without you, and you are the glue that holds this all together, and the people who volunteer to make such a beautiful experience, who put the Judaism into the music, who create such beautiful, beautiful experiences. Thank you so much.
I'm jumping in here then. Okay, so I'm going to say thank you to you and Ken, but especially to you, Cantor Markowicz, for this incredible presentation. And thank you so much for taking us through these 5 decades. This truly was a labor of love, and we are so grateful to you for sharing our congregation's rich musical history with us tonight. It was honestly fascinating for me personally, and I'm sure for so many of you it was a walk down memory lane. And Ken, your opening words were so true. You said that we really couldn't do this today at Am Shalom without the people that came before us. And that is so true, but especially we couldn't do it without you, Ken. So thank you so much for being the incredible human that you are as well.
And I'm jumping in to say that
Yeah.
I feel like I'm the luckiest rabbi in the country.
Well, I have to thank you first. Can I finish my thank you and then you can say that?
No. But really, we're in the period of the Omer, and kind of we're supposed to be counting every day during the Omer, and I kind of had this amazing experience listening to all 50 of these years. It was almost like we were counting each year. We were kind of going through, like going from the beginning to now, and it was almost like that moment of receiving Torah and kind of seeing all of the Torah that has been passed lador vador from generation to generation, and it really was just remarkable. There was so much stuff that I learned throughout this process, and Rabbi Kudan, hats off to you for having a vision for a congregation and hiring Ken, and working with people like Mort Barnard and kind of the choir and Cantor Landsman, and then just how it's blossomed under Cantor Markowicz and now under Cantor Staple as well. It really is remarkable, and kind of we are told to count our days and to make our days count, and kind of applying that to music. You make our music really count, and you fill it with meaning, and we are the beneficiaries of just an incredible 50-year, a half a century of Jewish music. So as we head to the next 50 years, buckle your seatbelts and enjoy the ride.
Thanks, Rabbi. And I was going to say that also we wouldn't be able to do what we do at our congregation without amazing rabbis who support music like you and like Rabbi Kudan, who had that vision. And so we're grateful to you for that. And to all of you, we are filled with gratitude to everyone that contributed to make this presentation possible, and to so many of you on the screen that have been and continue to be such an important part of music at Am Shalom. And just to all of you for being here tonight, thank you for your constant support of music at Am Shalom. And I will just close by echoing what you said to me, Cantor Markowicz. I feel blessed to work with you each and every day. So thank you all for being with us. I did have some upcoming music announcements written down. However, Cantor Markowicz covered each and every one of them during her presentation: the Schoenfeld concert, the Midsummer Night Dream concert, and the Ravinia night. So I'll just remind you to come by the temple from 9:30 to 10:30 tomorrow morning.
And Soul Children, July 27th at Grant Park.
Yes. And come grab a challah tomorrow morning. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. It was so beautiful, so wonderful. Mazel tov to all of you for this wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Our concluding song tonight is called Alle Brüder, meaning we are all brethren. Together, we happily sing joyous songs. Therefore, we cannot sing the song without your participation. The words are a little challenging, but I think you will get them. Please repeat after me. Oi. Yoi. Yoi. So we try that together. Oi, yoi, yoi. Hit it, Joyce.
Singen Lieder, tanzen unter